Who am I? Well, I'm a practically 77-year-old guy who wasted the first 9 years of his life, but in October 1926, a science fiction magazine jumped off the newsstand, grabbed hold of me, and magazines talked in those days, and this one spoke and said, "Take me home, little boy, you will love me." So time marched on, and you know, in the beginning, in the 20s and 30s, it was almost like being an individual in a desert dying of thirst, and every little drop of water that constituted a science fiction or fantasy magazine was precious to us. So didn't have pocketbooks in those days, and hardcovers and TV and VCRs and so on. So when I saw science fiction beginning to appear in comics, the original Superman and Batman and so on, why that was more for my collection. It's eventuated now up in Horrorwood, California, in an 18-room home with 300,000 things in it. And on the way to my 77th birthday back in 1969, I created a comic of my own called Vampirella. I did 190 issues as editor of famous Monsters of Filmland, and there's been 11 years the world has been without it. But when I was bringing Halloween to the kids of the country every month, these kids grew up and turned out to be Steven Spielberg and George Lucas and John Landis and Tobe Hooper and John Carpenter. And they find it kind of amusing to put me in their movies. So at the end of this month of August, I'm going to do my 44th appearance in a film. I imagine it'll be the end of my movie career because I get my head blown off. And they tell me there isn't much call for actors without heads, unless possibly they'll do the Headless Horseman of, what hollow is it, Sleepy Hollow? Anyway, the magazine is, that's
Making back up
me.
about 3 feet?
Yes, that's me before I had my teeth fixed.
Oh, he's going to go that way.
The first issue of this, in 1958, we found there were 125,000 people waiting to grab it off the newsstands, and after all the copies were gone, we went back to print with another 75,000. So we have a large audience out there of the nostalgia crowd that are 35, 40 years old, and they tell me they're all looking forward to their children to look at their early issues and then be brought up to date with the brand new ones. We're going to specialize, as we always did, in keeping alive the lure and lore of Lon Chaney, the Man of a Thousand Faces, and Karloff and Lugosi, but we'll also be featuring new films like the Frankenstein and Pumpkinhead, and there's going to be another dinosaur film called Mistress of the Dinosaurs. As long as it isn't too gosh awful gory, they've even created a new word that goes beyond horror into gorer, but there are plenty of publications to handle that, so we'll stick kind of the old tried and true of the classics of the 30s and 40s. Anything else I can tell you? The world is welcome to visit me, 18-room home in Horrorwood, California. I'm the only Forrest Ackerman in the phone book. Just dial 213-MOON-FAN if you're ever around town. I'm glad to let you run barefoot through 18 rooms.